Hi, I'm Evan, 31, and 3 weeks ago I thought I'd finally pulled off the biggest surprise of my life. For years, my parents talked about wanting to travel. One day, always pointing at glossy travel magazines like they were looking through the glass of a bakery they couldn't afford. So when my business had its best quarter yet, I booked something outrageous. A full first-class family trip to Tokyo, hotels, food tours, private guides, airport lounges. The works. I'd imagined the reveal 100 times, my mom crying happy tears, my dad doing that quiet little nod he does when he's proud, the three of us hugging like some Hallmark commercial. But reality was not that. Because from the moment I told them, something felt off. My mom's first question wasn't, "When do we leave?" or, "Oh my goodness, Tokyo?" No, she blinked rapidly, almost disappointed, and asked, "Is it refundable?" My dad tried to cover it with a cough, but he had the same look, not excited, not moved, more like uncomfortable. And then came the second question, the one that made my stomach drop. "Did you book a ticket for your sister too?" My sister, who hasn't spoken to me in 4 years because I wouldn't co-sign a loan for her boyfriend's roofing business? That sister? Absolutely not, but I tried to keep the peace. "It's a gift for you too," I said calmly. "A chance for us to spend time together." Mom forced a smile. Dad muttered something about hoping everything goes smoothly, which felt oddly pointed, but I shrugged it off. Families are weird, trips are stressful, maybe they were overwhelmed. I didn't realize I should have taken those comments as a warning. Fast forward to the morning of the flight. We're at the airport, bags packed, first class tags hanging proudly, and the whole thing actually felt magical for a moment. My parents were smiling, lighter, excited in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. We checked in, breezed through security, and were walking toward the lounge when the entire trip detonated right in front of us. Because standing at the boarding gate, blocking our path like she'd been waiting, was my sister. Not accidentally there, not coincidentally passing through. She was expecting us. And the look she gave me when she saw I didn't have a ticket for her, that's when I knew something had gone very, very wrong. My sister, Paige, strutted toward us like she owned the terminal. She had a massive designer tote slung over her arm, one she definitely couldn't afford, and sunglasses so oversized she looked like she was hiding from the paparazzi nobody had sent. "There you are," she said loudly, like I was the one keeping her waiting. Then she pointed at the boarding gate behind her. "So, when do we check in?" I blinked. "Paige, what are you doing here?" She scoffed. "What do you mean? Mom and Dad said you planned a family trip or—" She pushed down her sunglasses and narrowed her eyes. "Did you really think you'd take them to Tokyo without inviting me?" My stomach nodded. I looked at my parents, silently begging for clarification. Mom suddenly found her boarding pass fascinating. Dad stared at the carpet like it was telling him the secrets of the universe. "You invited her?" I whispered. Mom finally sighed dramatically, like I was the burden. "Evan, sweetheart, she's your sister. Of course we told her. We assumed you just forgot to book her ticket." Forgot? One first-class round trip was already the price of a used car, and they really thought I'd forgotten to buy a second. Paige crossed her arms. "Well, fix it. You're the big businessman now, right? Just buy another ticket. Paige, this flight's been sold out for weeks." She blinked slowly, then smiled with that catty sweet expression I've hated since we were kids. "So? First-class passengers get priority approval for same-day upgrades. Just tell them you need one." "That isn't how it works." She rolled her eyes so hard I'm surprised the TSA didn't stop her for suspicious ocular activity. "God, you're impossible." "Fine, coach is fine. You can refund the difference to me later." I stared at her, speechless. Mom stepped in then, lowering her voice like she was saying something sensible. "Evan, please, she's part of this family. You should have booked her from the beginning." The shock hit me harder than turbulence ever could. They hadn't just invited her. They expected me to pay for her. They assumed it was my responsibility. And somehow I was the bad guy. "We're going to miss the lounge window," Dad muttered. Annoyed, not at Paige, at me. Before I could respond, Paige marched straight to the gate agent and slapped her passport on the counter. "My brother forgot to add me to the reservation," she announced loudly. "Be a doll and fix it." The poor agent blinked, already exhausted. And then, because this day wasn't done destroying me, my sister's entire expression suddenly changed. Smug, triumphant, almost gleeful. She turned around slowly, eyes locked on me. "Oh, by the way," she said, "I forgot to tell you something, kind of important." The agent stared between us, confused. Paige stepped closer, lowered her sunglasses again, and whispered, I'm not just coming on this trip, I'm moving to Tokyo. It was so bizarre, so outlandish, that for a moment I actually laughed. But she wasn't joking, and what she said next explained everything, including why my parents had been acting strange from the beginning. Paige's smile widened into something unhinged, like she'd been waiting weeks to deliver this moment. I'm moving to Tokyo, she repeated, louder this time so the gate agent and half the line could hear. Mom and Dad said you'd help me get settled, financially. My jaw literally dropped. What are you talking about? Mom hurried over and put a hand on Paige's back like she was a precious vase about to topple. Sweetheart, maybe we should have told him sooner. Told me what? My voice cracked. Dad cleared his throat. Your sister's situation changed. Situation, that was always code for Paige screwing up her life in a new and spectacular way. She stepped forward, pulling down her sunglasses fully. For the first time, I saw she'd been crying, or maybe she was hungover. With her, it was a 50-50 toss-up. I got fired, she announced. Okay? Are you happy now? The gate agent pretended to be extremely fascinated by her keyboard. I blinked. You worked at that job for months? 7, she snapped. And it would have been longer if my manager wasn't a sexist jerk who hates strong women. Dad added unhelpfully. Her boss asked her to be on time, very unreasonable. Paige gasped, offended all over again. Exactly. Who makes people show up at 9? Literal fascism. I dragged a hand down my face. Paige, what does this have to do with Tokyo? She brightened. Oh. Right, so after I got fired I couldn't pay rent, and my landlord is being dramatic. Dramatic? I cut in. He sent you an eviction notice. She snapped her fingers. Yes, that drama. Anyway, I told Mom and Dad, and since you are the successful one, they said you'd help me start fresh, new country, new life. And Tokyo is perfect because it's safe, clean, and the men there respect feminine energy. I stared at my parents. You told her I'd pay for her to move? To Japan? Where she doesn't speak the language, has no job, no savings, no plan. Mom bristled. Evan, don't be rude, your sister is going through a lot. She's always going through a lot. Well, that's why she needs family. Translation. That's why she needs me. The bank account with legs. Paige clapped her hands suddenly. Anyway, since you booked this first-class trip for us, she gestured grandly at herself. This is the perfect time to start looking at apartments. I made a list. She pulled out her phone and showed me pictures of luxury Tokyo penthouses. Look at this one, she said. Only 780,000 yen a month. That's over $5,000. I said flatly. She flipped her hair. So? Japan has universal basic vibes. What did that even mean? But before I could respond, the gate agent cleared her throat gently. I'm so sorry, but we are fully booked today. There are no open seats in any cabin. Paige narrowed her eyes at her. Try harder. Ma'am, try. Paige spelled slowly, tapping the counter. HRDR. I stepped in. Paige, stop. She whirled on me. You did this, you knew I was coming. I absolutely did not. Well, you should have, you're my big brother, you're supposed to handle things. And then, just when I thought this couldn't possibly get worse, she smirked and delivered the line that shattered the entire trip. Besides, Mom and Dad already gave me the money you sent them, so technically, you did pay for me, I'm just here collecting what's mine. My heart stopped. The money I sent them, for the trip? For their trip? Dad winced. Mom looked away. Paige grinned, and that was the moment everything blew apart. For a solid 5 seconds, I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't even blink. The money I sent you. I repeated slowly, turning to my parents. The money I sent for your flights, the prepaid hotel, the tours, the lounge access, that money? Mom offered a weak smile. Sweetheart, we can explain. Oh, please do. I said. Because it really sounds like you took the Tokyo trip budget and gave it to Paige. Paige snorted. Ugh, don't make it sound dramatic. They didn't give it to me, they just redirected it. It's called helping family. My dad finally spoke, voice weary. We only gave her enough so she wouldn't end up on the street. How much? I asked. Silence. How much? Mom caved first. 24. I blinked. 24 what? Dad cleared his throat. 1,000. The world tilted. You gave her $24,000? I whispered. The entire trip budget? Mom rushed in, defensive. She needed it. And we thought since you always say money isn't a problem, I said that because I was treating you. I snapped. Not funding Paige's next disaster. Paige scoffed loudly. Well, excuse me for needing support after a traumatic life event. You got fired for not showing up. I said. How is that traumatic for you? Paige gasped like I'd slapped her. You're victim blaming. No, I'm common sense ing. Gate agent, still trapped in this car crash of a conversation, gently cleared her throat. Sir, ma'am, we really do have to start boarding. Paige spun back to her. Great, so put me on the flight. The agent carefully avoided eye contact. I can't do that. Why not? Because you don't have a ticket. Because he forgot to buy me one. The agent gave me the kind of look you give someone when you want to say I'm so sorry for your entire family but can't because of corporate policies. Mom stepped closer to me, lowering her voice. Evan, sweetheart, be reasonable. Just buy another ticket. We'll sort out the money situation later. There are no tickets, I said. And even if there were, I'm not paying for Paige to move to another continent on a whim. Paige's face twisted. Wow, so this is who you really are. Paige, no. I get it now, you pretend you're this generous, successful, loving son, but when your own family needs you? Suddenly you're stingy, suddenly there are boundaries. Yes, I said. There are, that's literally why I have a functioning life. She took a dramatic step back like I'd become radioactive. I cannot believe this, after everything I've done for you. I blinked. What, exactly have you ever done for me? She looked offended that I even asked. I exist. Behind us, Dad rubbed his temples, Mom sighed heavily like I was ruining their trip, and then Paige delivered the final blow. If you don't buy me a ticket, she hissed, then nobody's going to Tokyo. It took me a second to process, then it hit me, she meant it, she wasn't bluffing, and she wasn't done, because right as they announced pre-boarding, Paige suddenly stepped toward the gate agent, raised her voice, and yelled, Excuse me? I need to report a fraud situation regarding this reservation. The gate agent froze. Passengers all turned. Mom gasped. Dad groaned. And I felt the blood drain from my face as my sister proceeded to dismantle our entire trip in real time. Paige raised her voice to a volume that made half the terminal stop mid-step. Hi, she said brightly to the gate agent, though her eyes were full wolf. I need to report that my brother here. She jabbed a thumb at me. Used my parents' credit card without permission to book this whole trip. My soul left my body. What? I choked. The gate agent stiffened. Ma'am, that's a very serious claim. Exactly, Paige said, nodding like a deranged bobblehead. He emptied their account. They told me everything. That's why I'm here, to help them get their money back. Mom weakly whispered. Paige, stop. But Paige was in full performance mode now, her favorite and most dangerous state. She slammed a hand dramatically onto the counter. Cancel all 3 of their tickets, immediately, and flag the purchase as unauthorized. The gate agent looked like she wanted to dissolve into mist. Ma'am, I can't do that without confirmation from my parents confirm. Paige said, spinning toward them. Tell her. Dad pinched the bridge of his nose. Paige, come on. Mom sighed. Paige, honey, this, oh my God. Paige groaned, whipping around to face them. You're doing that thing again where you protect him just because he's the golden boy. You literally let him steal from you. I stepped forward. Nothing was stolen. I paid for the trip. With MY money, you took it. Anyway. Paige clapped loudly, cutting me off. Cancel the tickets, we're not going. The agent's eyebrows were now practically in the stratosphere. I can't cancel anything unless the actual cardholder requests it. Paige whipped around to Mom like a prosecutor. Mom, cancel it. Mom mumbled. Sweetheart, this isn't, cancel it. Dad finally snapped. Paige, enough. It was the first time he'd raised his voice in years. Paige froze for half a second, then spun on him, furious. Oh, so now you're going to be a father? When it's convenient? Where was this energy when I was fired? Or when my landlord threatened me? Or when my last boyfriend dumped me because you guys didn't support our relationship? I blinked. You got dumped because he stole your AirPods. Paige ignored me entirely. For once in your life, support me. Dad opened his mouth, then closed it again. Mom looked between us, torn. You could practically see the codependent gears grinding. And then Paige sensed her moment. Either he buys me a ticket, she said, pointing at me like an attorney from a courtroom drama. or you two don't get on that plane. Mom looked conflicted. Dad looked exhausted. I looked like someone experiencing a stroke in real time. Paige, this is ridiculous, I said. You can't blackmail your way into an international trip. She crossed her arms smugly. Watch me. And then it happened. Mom's shoulders sank. Dad let out a tired exhale. They weren't stepping forward to support me. They were stepping toward her. The moment I saw it, my stomach dropped, because I suddenly understood. They weren't just enabling her. They were choosing her. Again, Dad spoke quietly. Maybe we should reschedule. My heart cracked. You're canceling the trip? Over this? Mom wouldn't look at me. Sweetheart, she's your sister, she's family. And I'm what? I asked. The wallet? Paige answered for them. Yes. I almost passed out. But the universe wasn't done. Because just as the gate agent started to reopen the reservation file, a voice boomed over the intercom. Attention first-class passengers on flight JL0052 Tokyo. Final call for boarding. Everyone turned. Everyone hesitated. And then, out of nowhere, Dad did something I have never seen him do. He walked away. He just walked straight toward the boarding door. Mom blinked. Honey? He didn't stop. He didn't look back. He just raised his boarding pass and kept going. Mom panicked. Where are you going? He glanced over his shoulder once and said, loudly enough for all of us to hear. I'm going to Tokyo. Evan paid for a trip. I'm taking the trip. Silence. Then he added, and I'm going without the two of you. The entire terminal gasped. Mom froze. Paige's jaw dropped, and I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. For a moment, nobody moved. The whole terminal seemed to glitch like reality couldn't process what had just happened. My dad, the quiet one, the conflict-avoidant one, the man who once apologized to a Roomba for bumping into it, was walking toward the jet bridge like a man reclaiming his freedom after 30 years in a psychological chokehold. Mom finally snapped out of it and ran after him. Honey! Do not get on that plane without me. But Dad didn't even break stride. He held up his boarding pass like a peace treaty he was rejecting. I'm tired, Lisa, he said over his shoulder. I am so incredibly tired. Mom gasped like he'd revealed he had a second family. Tired? Tired? Of what? He stopped at the entrance of the jet bridge, turned around, and said loudly, too loudly, in fact, because everyone in a 40-foot radius went dead silent. Of you two acting like Evan is an ATM with legs. Paige let out a scandalized gasp. Excuse me? Dad pointed directly at her. You haven't had a job longer than a pregnancy scare. A woman at the adjacent gate snorted into her latte. Dad continued. You drain your mother emotionally, financially, and spiritually, and instead of fixing your life, you latch on to Evan's. Paige blinked like she couldn't believe she was being read for filth in the middle of Terminal B. And you, Dad said, turning to Mom. Enable her every step, you hide her screw-ups, you fund her disasters, you let her weaponize guilt like it's her only marketable skill. Mom sputtered. I do not enable. You gave her $24,000 of his money. Mom shrank. Gate agent number 2 quietly wheeled over a sign that said now boarding, first class, as if to say please finish your family meltdown so we can go home. Dad sighed. I'm done. Evan paid for this trip, so I'm going. I'll enjoy it. I'll eat sushi that doesn't come from a strip mall. I'll sit in a hot spring. I'll walk around a city that isn't full of screaming. We don't scream. Paige screamed. Everyone stared. Dad turned to me. Evan, are you coming? I opened my mouth, then hesitated, not because I didn't want to go, but because for the first time in my life, my dad had chosen me, and I didn't want to leave him hanging. But Mom grabbed my arm, hard. You will not abandon your sister. Paige nodded vigorously. Yeah. You're coming home with us. I calmly removed her hand. No, I'm not. Paige scoffed. You can't just leave us here. That's exactly what I'm doing. Mom's voice went icy. If you get on that plane, don't expect us to forgive you. I looked at her, really looked at her, at the years of guilt trips, emotional debt, the constant message that Paige's chaos mattered more than anything I achieved. Mom, I said quietly. I stopped expecting that a long time ago. Paige erupted. You're both delusional. You can't. She lunged to block us. And that's when the universe gave us one final gift. She tripped over her oversized designer tote, flew forward, face planted into the gate stanchion, and slid onto the carpet in a heap. The gate agent dropped her scanner. A kid eating a pretzel yelled. OHHHHHHHHHH. Paige popped back up, hair everywhere. I'm fine. Nobody believed her. Dad turned to me again. Last call. The jet bridge door began to close, and for the first time in my entire adult life, I made a choice purely for myself. I'm coming, I said. Dad smiled. Together we stepped forward, and then, just as we reached the door, someone grabbed my backpack from behind. Mom, eyes wild, voice trembling. Evan, if you walk through that door, your sister will have nothing. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said the line I never thought I'd say in my entire life. That's her job, not mine. And I stepped through the jet bridge. The jet bridge door closed behind us with a heavy thud, and Dad exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for decades. First-class attendants greeted us, but none of it mattered as much as the look on his face when he sat down, some mix of disbelief and pure relief. I didn't think I'd actually walk away, he whispered. I didn't think I would either, I admitted. For the next 12 hours, we lived like actual human beings. Real meals, real rest, no yelling, no guilt. Dad kept glancing around the cabin like someone might change their mind and send him back to economy and emotional servitude. At one point, he leaned over and said quietly, Evan, thank you, I haven't felt this free in years. Tokyo only amplified that freedom. We wandered shrines, ate ramen that ruined all other ramen, and talked, really talked. Dad admitted he hadn't realized how much of his life was spent keeping the peace, which really meant appeasing the chaos. By the last night, he sighed heavily and told me, when we get home, things can't stay the same. I didn't push him, I could tell he was still figuring out what that meant. Then I turned my phone back on, dozens of missed calls, voicemails, and one photo that said everything. Mom sitting on the airport floor, mascara streaks everywhere, Paige beside her looking furious. Caption, you ruined our family. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty, just free. Dad saw the photo, chuckled, and said, they'll survive. When we landed, Mom and Paige were waiting, smiling, too sweet, too creepy. Paige stepped forward first. Evie, we've all reflected. We overreacted. Mom nodded angelically. We want to move forward as a family. The catch arrived immediately. Paige beamed. So, we decided you'll help me move to Tokyo in the spring. Since you already had your little bonding trip with Dad, it's only fair that I get your support next. I blinked. No. They froze. Mom whispered, Evan, we apologized. No. I said. You repackaged the manipulation with better lighting. Paige stomped a heel. So you're abandoning me? I'm finally letting you be an adult. Mom's smile snapped. We didn't raise you to be selfish. You raised me to feel responsible for problems I didn't create. I said, that ends now. Paige sputtered. If you leave, we won't forgive you. Dad stepped forward. Then don't. Mom stared at him, stunned. You're taking his side? I'm taking the sane side. He said simply. We walked away, just like that. Outside, Dad inhaled the cool air like he'd been underwater for years. That, he said, might be the healthiest thing I've ever done. So what now? I asked. Now, he said, we finally live our lives, our way. In the weeks after, Mom sent guilt texts, Paige posted dramatic rants, but Dad started therapy, and me, I stopped trying to fix a family that wasn't interested in being fixed. Tokyo didn't break us.it revealed the truth, and for the first time, I chose myself, and the parent who finally chose me back.